Parshat Bo. Um, so the first piece we have here is from the Shem Mishmur. We're going to the theme this morning. I could say that the theme this morning, to a certain extent, is Bechor, the firstborn. The idea of firstborn. At least the first two pieces or three things we're going to discuss will deal with Bechor. Okay. Now, the Shem Mishmur, number one, he starts with, this is in Perek Yud Gimel of the Parsha. This is at the end of the Parsha. Kadesh li kol Bechor. You have to sanctify the firstborn. Okay? But then there seems to be, the Perek deviates, right? Talks about sanctifying the firstborn, then all of a sudden, firstborn not only of humans, but also of behemoth and animals. Then the Gemara the Perek kind of a little haphazardly, remember the day that you came out of Mitzrayim. So we talked about Yetzias Mitzrayim. Kadesh li Bechor that's because of the makkah, the final makkah of destroying the firstborn, right? Because what the rabbis tell us is that for every makkah, for every plague that happened to Bnei Israel, there was a counter kedusha that we got. So without going through all 10 of them, but with Bechor, the obvious is that there's now after the plague of the firstborn, the kedusha of Bnei Israel is announced, that we are the Bechor is holy, is sanctified. And by the way, Yisrael is also B'ni Bechori Yisrael. We're also Bechor. But then he talks about the animal, right? Doesn't seem to fit in. Then he reminds us about our slavery. Then Kiviach El Eretz HaKanan, he talks about he's going to bring us into Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is talked about here. Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash. This is all the parsha of Bechor. And that we eat matzah, we don't eat chametz. And then he goes back to Bechor, Peter, Chamor, of every animal. You have to, the Bechor of every cattle is holy, the firstborn of a cattle, right? And then Peter, Chamor of a donkey, there's a whole process. And then he returns and he says, Vegarat Levincha, he talks about the mitzvah of giving over Yetziat Mitzrayim to our children, right? And then he ends with tefillin, right? The parak ends with tefillin, right? That v'haya la'ot al yadcha l'totafot beinenecha. That this all should be a sign on your arm and on your head. So what does all this have to do with, this is the Parsha of Bechor. So right, it's a little haphazard. You take a look at the end of the Parsha, you'll see this. So this is what he's going to talk about now. Okay? The Shem Mishmur. For those who have not been here before, the Shem Mishmur was the Sochachover Rebbe. He was the son of the Avnei Nezer, a great Hasidic master who actually, his father, the Avnei Nezer died in 1913. So the Shem Mishmur died about, let's say, 20 years later. Okay, so a Hasidic master in really our time, almost our time, right? Kadesh li kol bechor, vayomer Moshe ela'am zachor, and then he goes on. Yesh lehitbonen, we have to get a handle on this. Madua lo amar Moshe takef din kiddush bikurim. Why didn't he immediately say Kadesh li kol bechor, and now talk about the concept of being mekadesh, of sanctifying the firstborn? But he doesn't do that. V'hifsit b'parsha acheret, and he stops and he goes to Yom Tov Shel Pesach. He talks about Yom Pesach utfilin. Right, so I gave you a little bit of this introduction here. What his question is, and at the end, he goes back. At the end of the parsha, he talks about the sanctity of the firstborn again. Now he says, so you can't answer the way the Ramban answers in many places in Tanakh, in Chumash. Sometimes, I want to say we're learning today for Refuah Shlema. We're learning today for Refuah Shlema for Beryl Ben Fega, Barry, and Doreen's husband, Doreen, who is our secretary. right? And he's having a major operation again today, and he should have a refuah shlema, and everyone should daven for Beryl Ben Fega, and our learning is in the schut of our learning that he should have a refuah shlema. Okay, so that I mean the haphazard parsha. So you can't say like the Ramban says many times. The Torah gives short shrift to the words that Hakadosh Baruch Hu skips over things that he says to Moshe. Sometimes Moshe speaks to Rabbi Shalom. You don't see everything. He said, but that's not what's going on here. That's if things are out of order, right? So what? So El Alichor. So Veneer, go down about 2 lines. Veneer Dine. Here's my answer. I'll tell you what my answer is, because we have to understand what the sanctity of Bechor means, right? Bechor is a concept. The first is a concept. And this is not just about the firstborn, that when we were given that mitzvah of sanctifying the firstborn, we were given a total panorama of being Bechor. Everything that we have is Bechor. Klal Yisrael is B'ni Bechor Yisrael, right? So he explains. And he says this in the name of his grandfather, the Kotzker Rebbe. The Bekol Makot Shahayu LeMitzrayim, every one of the plagues that Egypt got, Niftach Kenegdan LiYisrael B'Kedusha. There was an opening of sanctity to Bnei Israel, as I mentioned earlier, right? There's a quid pro quo. For every plague, we got the better side of the deal. Now, the plague was the dark side of the negative of everything. We got the real picture, right? So the destruction of the killing of the Bechor of Mitzrayim, but we now become the Bechor. That's sanctity. V'zeh naguf v'rafu naguf l'Mitzrayim, right? So it's naguf v'rafu, the pasuk says, right? And they get plagued and we get healed, right? So ubezeh atzma haya rafu Israel. This is the rehabilitation of Am Yisrael as Am Yisrael. Right? We're coming out of Egypt. This is the birth of a nation. Goy mikerev goy. When we come out of Mitzrayim, this is the birth. It's like the Leda of the birth of Am Yisrael coming out of Mitzrayim, and we are the Bechor, right? We're the firstborn of all people. Well, the Fizeh Makat Bechorot. So therefore, the plague of Bechorot, of killing the firstborn, Shehi Bittul HaReshit Shalem, which destroyed their Reshit. Now remember, until now, Egypt was at the top of the world. They were the most powerful nation in the world. They were the Reshit. They were the Bechor, right? They represented the power of the world. Egypt was the country of the world, right? Ulumata nitromama v'nikdasha reshit Israel. But what happened now is that it turned over completely, upside down, and Yisrael became the Bechor. V'hinei yesh reshit b'chol davar. Everything has reshit. Everything is Bechor. In every aspect you have Bechor. Pesach, who reshit Moadei Zmanei Yisrael. That's why the Parsha talks about Pesach. It's not out of order here. The Torah is describing to us what the bracha of Kedushat Bechor is. It's not just about the firstborn son. It's about everything else. It's about Pesach. It's about the Yom Tov of Pesach, which is the first of the Yom Tovim, right? The calendar begins, the Rosh, the head of the year is Pesach, right? Eretz Yisrael, Ubeit HaMikdash, Zehu Reshit HaOlam. So you have, we always say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. There are 3 kinds of Kedusha. There's Kedusha in Zman, in time. There's Kedusha in place, right, in Makom. And there's Kedusha in Adam, right? So so this is what we were given here. And the Bechorah is, the Kedusha in time is Pesach. Our Bechor, the firstborn in time, is Pesach, in terms of the calendar, in terms of our calendar. Eretz Yisrael, Beit HaMikdash is in space, in place. The sanctity of Eretz Yisrael and the Beit HaMikdash is Reshit HaOlam. That is sanctity. That is the first of the Kedusha of space, of place, right? B'nefesh Reshit. And what's in Nefesh? Where's the Bechor of the soul? Reshit Hem HaMoach VaHalev. That's the brain, the seat of the intellect, and the heart, the seat of the emotion. And that's tefillin, right? That's tefillin. Tefillin is put here, and tefillin is put here because these are all issues of bechor, the firstborn animal, and what we eat, right? Eretz Yisrael, right? And the calendar, right? That's what. So it's not. He's not changing topics here. V'hinei Eluhem Reshit Shel Olam Shana V'Nefesh. These are the Reshit. These are the Bechor of place, time, and Nefesh and humanity. Klal Yisrael. V'Kulam b'Parshazot. Everything is in this parsha. So it's not haphazard. It's an essay. This parak is an essay about what Bechor is all about. It's not just that we redeem the firstborn son. That's good. That's nefesh. That's Klal Yisrael, right? And maybe that's why we make such a big thing about tefillin by bar mitzvah. If our boy starts his tefillin at bar mitzvah, traditionally that's a major thing, a major entree into being a bar mitzvah is putting on tefillin. But that relates to the Bechor aspect of Klal Yisrael, right? The tefillin, again, the nefesh, the intellect and the emotion, right? And he says, "Vasiyat Pesach b'Beit Hamikdash v'Chag Pesach, achilat matzah v'Isur chametz, harei reshit shel olam v'shana." Again, this is the reshit, this is the bechor of space and time. Utfilin shel yad keneged halev. The tefillin of the hand is next to the heart. V'shel rosh keneged hamoach. And the tefillin of the head is next to the brain, right? He reshit b'nefesh l'kadesh et halev, to sanctify the heart. Zet shukat adam. This is what man is all about. This is our reshit that Klal Yisrael has, that we understand that we are mekadesh, right? What our mind, our intellect, and our emotion. Hamoach zeh machshava, right? The moach is intellect. Uksiv. Interesting. What does it say about tefillin in the Torah? Bein einecha. You put the bein einecha, between your eyes. Now, if you translate that literally, you'd have to put the tefillin right down here, right on the bridge of your nose, right? But that's not what it means. But so why does the Torah say bein einecha? He says, perhaps he says, afshim b'mekomam gevo al rosh, even though the place of the tefillin is where the soft spot of the baby's brain is, right? That's where you put it, at the beginning of the hairline, or the beginning of the hairline, all the shalom. That's where it has to be, right? So yesh rosh l'rmos l'kedushas hamachshava tzluyi b'riyat einayim. So why does the Torah say between your eyes? Because intellect, everything has to do with shmirat einayim, right? Ki hamachshava kimat eino b'reshut adam. Intellect is not in our. We're not in control. Shelo yipolo davar ma b'machshavato b'reshut adam. Hu rak shelo yachzik b'machshava sheyasir imenu aval lo tipol alav klal v'lo tavo elav toli b'shmirat einayim. In other words, what we see, right? We think about what we see. So there's a power of sight, bein einecha, and we shouldn't abuse it, because sight can destroy. That's why we look at our tzitzis. We have to look at the tzitzit representing the mitzvot. We have to be shomer einayim, shmirat einayim. Because when we look at the wrong thing, our machshava goes in the wrong direction. So there's a tie-in between sight and the mind. Tana b'ni libi ve'enecha. He quotes a pasuk in Mishlei in Proverbs. My son, give me your heart and your eyes. Right? It's good to be you want to be an academic, right? There's a Paul Johnson. If you're familiar with the author Paul Johnson, a historian, he was a Catholic. I think he's still alive. I'm not sure, but he wrote the History of the Jews. Phenomenal history of the Jews, right, by Paul Johnson. I recommend it. But he also wrote a book called The Intellectuals. Now, The Intellectuals, he talks about all the people that are intellectuals that, in the world of philosophy. All of whatever name you can come up with, each one of them was absolutely brilliant, but they were degenerates. One after the other, all these great minds that are worshipped, right? The founding fathers of philosophy, right? They were degenerates, right? And what is that all about? Because greatness is not to be an academic, right? So you're an academic, you're great, right? That's not what greatness is by us. Rav Moshe Feinstein, right? how did Rav Moshe Feinstein become Rav Moshe Feinstein? Right? It has to be a synthesis of midot, of the eyes, right? The lave and the mind. Otherwise, you just tell it's an academic. You go approach Torah. It's intellectual popcorn. It's very nice. I want to study it like I'll study mathematics, but that's not what it's all about. Let me tell you about Rav Moshe Feinstein. Right? Pardon? Yes. Right. Yeah, right. Yeah. All right. Listen, you're on tape now. Be careful what you say. He's got children and grandchildren. Okay. All right. You're right. Right. We have a bit of lot of a problem with his approach to Kabbalah anyway. But let me tell you about Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe was the Gadol Ador, the Posek Ador, right? He paskin for all of us, right? When Rav Moshe came to the Lower East Side, people suggested become a shochet. There's no, what are you going to do here, right? He sat, he learned, he wrote. My Rebbe, Rav Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal, was the Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Yisrael. When he was a little boy, his father would send him with a chicken in the Lower East Side. They moved here from Tveria and they were living on the Lower East Side, and he would take a chicken to a Rav in the Lower East Side. He said there were three kinds of Rabbanim on the Lower East Side. You walk in, every Rav was sitting with a Gemara, but one Rav had a plate there. And he did not look up from his Gemara until he heard the tinkle of the coin, because you're coming to ask a shayla, you got to pay, right? Until he heard the money hit the dish. Then he would look up and he'd paskin. Then there's another kind of Rav, he said, and he as a kid, he remembered this. He just pushed the plate towards you, right? But there was one Rav on the Lower East Side that if you went to ask a shayla, he didn't even have a plate. And that was Rav Moshe, right? So eventually Rav Moshe became, right? And he writes at the beginning, I think I might have mentioned this a few weeks ago, in his introduction to his first chelik, he said, who might answer these questions, right? But what can I do? People are asking questions and nobody's answering them. So I've got to answer them. So I'm going to answer them the best I can, right? So Moshe became Gadol Ador and Psak in Halacha, right? How do you become a Gadol? It's not just academic, right? There's nothing that Rav Moshe didn't know in Torah, right? In Arba Chelkei Shulchan Aruch and in Bavli and Yerushalayim, whatever it is, right? But it was who he was, his persona, right? That's greatness for us, right? So that's perhaps why the Torah says that tefillin should be beinei necha, because without that, the intellect is nothing. So this is unbelievable. This is all the Bechorah and the animals. The first. So this is, and I'll give you a silly example, right? If you're a sports fan, and even if you're not, you'll understand this, that you have, let's say in sports, you have a team. Let me take, baseball, right? Let's say you're a baseball fan and you were a fan of a certain, in your city, like the Yankees, let's say they won the World Series 20 times, right? And all of a sudden, for 10 years, they didn't won the World Series, right? And all of a sudden, they come back and they win the World Series, right? Take any city, right? When the sports runs society in so many ways that it affects people want to live there, the value of houses, tourism, right? Once the first that they won the World Series, they were number one. They were the Bechor, lahavdil. So tourism picks up, housing picks up, the whole environment changes. In fact, they do things with the environment and the highways, right? That's Bechorah. Bechorah affects the entire social dynamic, the entire panorama of our lives. That's Bechorah. That's what he says over here. Okay, let's go to number 2. This is from Rav Hutner, and he's also talking about Bechorah, the firstborn, and he's going to give us something very special. This is from a much bigger piece, and I've taken it out. What he first of all points out here is that Ikra shel Parsha zu shel V'higarat Levincha, the whole Parsha of V'higarat Levincha, the mitzvah to tell over your son, Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, is 2 of those sons are in this chapter also. I skipped through it, but you'll see that you have, I think, the Rosh and the Enu de Elishol are in this Parsha. The 2 psukim from this whole Bechorah thing. You have the Jewish children who become the Bechor, who ask the questions, right? So he says the whole idea of the mitzvah of relating to our children, B'kedushat Bechorah hu osek, is talking in this whole parak of the sanctity of Bechor, right? The father to the son, with the exodus from Egypt. This is in the Parsha of Bechor. Kol atzma shel mitzvah zu shel vigarat levincha. The whole essence, the whole persona of the mitzvah of teaching your children. Eino elo nereget berikmat kedushat habechora. It's tied in with the sanctity of Bechor, right? So this is one we left out in our discussion here, but he's throwing that into the pile here. The whole idea of giving over to our child, that's a concept of Bechor. How is that? Passing from father to son, from parent to child, how is that Bechor? He says, Mahalach advarim kachu. Let me explain. There's a mitzvah in the Torah, kavod achicha hagadol. There's a mitzvah in the Torah, whether it's dorais, rabbanon. There's a mitzvah of kabedet avicha v'et imecha. There's also a mitzvah to honor one's older brother, let's say. It could be an older sister also. The post can discuss this. Could be every older brother or sister, but essentially the mitzvah is to bechor, right? To honor your oldest brother. Kabedet achicha hagadol. And he said, Rabbi, where does that come from? From the et of kibud av ve'em, right? Rabbe mihaet shebekibud av. In other words, kabed et avicha ve'et imecha. The et is achicha gadol. You have to honor the firstborn son also, your brother, right? Pirush Agra, the Gra explains, in Yono Shel Ribu, he said, what is the utility of this? Ki kemoshe kavod ha'avot magia lehem, the honor. Why do we honor parents? Magia lehem mitzad shehem ha'hatchala. They are our beginning. Over the page, leklaliut hatoldot, right? The children come from the mother and the father, from the parents. Kamoke yeshlo bechor chelik b'hatchala. The bechor also has a place in shel shar haholdot haboim acharav, who come after him, right? In other words, the bechor makes husband and wife, mother and father, right? So it's the second level of children, right? He creates the next stage in the growth of the family, the pattern of the nation, right? Shel shar holadot haboim acharav. Hatanug o hatzar, the pain or the joy of child raising, she'oleh al avot, which comes to parents, mimitziuto shel bechor, for having that firstborn child, right? Nit mitarev u mit mazeg is mixed in l'toch etzem koach holada shel avot. That it's a simcha in their birth, in their ability to give birth. The bechor is, what does he mean? It gets better. And then the essence of the bechor of a nasid chelik dak shel ha'avhut v'ha'imahut l'shar holadot. He becomes a kind of a parent, a second degree parent. And I've mentioned this before, I think maybe in this setting, that psychologists, there's a lot of literature in psychology about the bechor being the parenting child. And it leads to a lot of interesting, sometimes problems, sometimes good things, but it's like a triangle. You have mother, father, and the firstborn. He's got something to say about every child, about everything that they're doing wrong to that child and not to him, whatever. So sometimes it's an inverted triangle. You have the bechor up here and mother and father here. So I'm saying psychologically, this is something that psychologists deal with, right? There is such a notion as the parenting child, right? But it relates to this because he really essentially is a second degree parent. He creates, right? He moves along. Umitzad zeh tofeset hi chachmat lashon hakodesh. Now let me show it to you in lashon kodesh. I'm going to show it to you in our language, right? At habechora can mean avut shniya. I'm going to show you how bechora is a second level parenthood, second level father, right? Shahari hamila av, the word av, father is av, right? Binyanahu rishon v'sheni. It's 1, 2. In gematria, it's 1, 2, right? Aleph ubeit. Aleph is av, beit is Bechor. V'tekev acharei habeit, and right after the beit. So now, you have in mathematics, right? This is not complicated math. Even I can understand it. You have units, right? From 1 to 10 is units. From 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 is tens. And then you have from 100, 205 is hundreds, right? You have 10 units, tens, and hundreds, okay? In Gematria, every letter of the Aleph Beit has a number, right? We know that. Aleph is 1, Beit is 2, Yud is 10, Chaf is 20, right? Kuf is 100, Resh is 200, 10 is 10, Yud is 10, Chaf is 20, 1 is 1, 2 is Beit, Aleph is 1, Beit is 2. So look at the word Bechor. What do you have? You have Aleph, Beit, father, son, Bechor. V'tekev acharei Beit. What do you have, Beit? What's Beit? Beit is the second of units, right? 1, 2. Beit is the second of units. Mitlakdim kol ha'otiyot ha'shaniyim. You have the Bechor is all the second letters. Beit shniya liyichudut. Beit is the second letter, the continuum of units. The second letter, Beit. Chaf is the second letter of tens, right? And Resh is the second letter of hundreds. That's the word Bechor. Bechor is a continuum. Everything, by the way, everything in the Torah is based on mathematics. Everything in the Torah is based on mathematics. We don't understand it, right? But there was a student of the Vilna Gaon who wrote a sefer, which actually just came out in the 1990s. They discovered this sefer and it was published. And his whole he explains there from his Rabbi, the Vilna Gaon, the Gra, that the basis of Torah mathematics is such a fundamental part of Torah. And you see it here. Here's a perfect example. Beis Chaf Resh, the continuation of units, tens and hundreds, is the Bechor, is the parenting child, is that second degree parent, right? L'tziyarat hateva shel musag Bechor, that creates the whole concept of Bechor. Bechor. V'lo od. Let me go further, he says. More. She'ela shehabeit shehu hapticha shel tevat Bechor, the first letter of Bechor, nu'utza hi bebeit shehi chatimata shel tevat av. It is a continuum from Av, from father. Aleph Beit, Beit for Bechor. Mipnei shehabechora hu ha'avhut b'ma'adura shniya, because the Bechor is the second level of parenting. V'kacha hivlita hi chachmat haloshen. This is the chachmat haloshen. By the way, there's a big difference between Ivrit Chaya, the modern Hebrew that we speak, and Lashon Kodesh, right? Ivrit that we speak, I mean, I don't want to, burst our bubble, but it's not Lashon Kodesh, right? There's no such thing as Zelo fair in Lashon Kodesh, to give you an example, right? It's close, it's a close cousin, right? It's important to speak it, right? There's sanctity to it. It's based on Lashon Kodesh, right? But it's not Lashon Kodesh, right? Chachmas haloshen be'atzma et habechora keshora sheni. It's a second root, second parent. Umikan beteva haloshen she'amarnu ki habechora hi avut shniya. Beautiful concept, right? From Rav Hutner. Now, so what do you see from this? Again, just to review quickly, that the Bechor makes husband and wife, mother and father. He is the parenting child. He does contribute in that way, and that psychologically also, it does physically. B'mitzias, that's what he is, right? And he changes the whole reality, the whole dynamic of the family. If you look at the end of Bereshit, and particularly Noach, you'll see when the genealogy is listed in the Torah, it will say, for example, Meshushelach lived X number of years. Then he had children, and he lived another Y number of years. Meshushelach lived X, Y years and died. Now, why is the Torah divided up like that? At the beginning, there were others that are just, it simply says, so-and-so lived X number of years, he had children, and he died. Why is there a division? In many cases in Bereshit, you'll see it, that so-and-so lived X number of years, he had children, and then he lived a Y number of years, a total of X, Y, and he died. So the pshat is, what's the Torah telling us? That life with children is a totally different experience than life without children. It's a simple fact of life, right? And that is what the Bechor creates. He creates that distinction in life. Okay, let's go to the final piece here, and maybe we'll have time to do some things outside this piece. I want to get back. Okay, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe bo el Paro. So this is a little bit of going into Ki ani ichbarati et libo vet leva. Also, we're at the end now. I want you to go to him, tell him if you don't send the Bnei Israel out, you're finished. I'm going to destroy all your firstborn, right? But here's what I want you to tell him. Go to Paro and tell him, Ki ani ichbarati et libo, I hardened his heart. Vet levav adav leman shitio tatay ela bekirbo. And why did I do this? Because I wanted him to make a point here 10 times over with these plagues. Rashi, important Rashi. Bo el Paro, v'hisrabo, hitrabo, warn him. That's Rashi. Hare shahaya kad inyan shel hatra'ah. He's being warned. What's the warning? Afal pishi yeda Moshe, shelo yishma elav Paro. He knows that he's not going to listen to him, but he is instructed to warn him. But he knows he's not going to listen. Mishum shekfar hichbid Hashem et libo. He already hardened his heart. There's no turning back for Paro. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about that concept of what does it mean exactly that his heart was hardened, right? We'll get that when we finish with Schwab. But it's futility, right? Not utility, it's futility to warn him, right? I have a bigger problem, he wants to say, Rav Schwab. The whole warning is strange. Ko amar Hashem, Elokei Avrim, this is what God said. Ad matai me'anta la'anot mipanai. How long will you refuse to humiliate yourself in front of me? This is what he wants, they're warning him. Moshe says to him, I want to have a message from God. How long are you going to continue to humiliate, to refuse to humble yourself to the Rebbeinu Shalom, right? Well, Uberashi la'anot mipnei liyot ani v'shafel mipanai, to be like a nobody, a nothing, a poor person, a lowly person. When are you going to finally do that? To recognize who you are compared to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Asher tegadel hatmiyah. The question is even stronger. How is it possible Shakadosh Baruch Hu toveh b'Paro she'ani v'shafel b'fanav? How can God even ask Paro to do this, right? Paro, the king of the world, right? He's Paro, right? Whose heart is hardened. B'shah shekfar efshar lo leparo l'shanot shum davar. He can't change it. He can't help himself, right? And which we'll explain afterwards. Shahare kfar hichbid et libo. He already hardened his heart. We'll explain afterwards why that is so, right? Od yesh layer. One other thing he says, Rav Schwab. Shaloshen ad matai. Now this is something. Ad matai is a strange, Mashma shebemeshech hazman yavo yom sheyikaneh Paro, sheyachnia Paro et atzmo laKadosh Baruch Hu. Ad matai, how long is it going to take you? The implication is there's going to be a time that Paro is going to cave in and finally totally humiliate himself and totally surrender to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, recognize that he is nothing and a Kodesh Baruch Hu is everything. Ad matai, when is that going to happen already, right? Hainu al pi masha hodianu razal. Now this is a fantastic medrash, Pirkei Rebbe Lezer. Shemelech Ninveh, the king of Ninveh. Now we're going to Yom Kippur, right? So Yonah, right? The king of Ninveh, Shahaya bimei Yonah, Haya Oto Paro. This was the Paro. Or in brackets he writes, O Gilgal shel Oto Paro, the Kabbalists say. The Mekubalim say he was a Gilgal of Paro. He was Paro, right? Now what do we know about the king of Nineveh? He was a tzaddik. Shaya b'Mitzrayim is the same of Paro Mitzrayim. Asher az higia azman shenichna Paro. Vaya ani v'shafam v'nei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You remember the story, right? They put on sackcloth, they fasted, they cried to God to save them. He changed the whole society of Nineveh, right? He turned about. It was a turnaround, right? K'dichsiv vayiga hadavar al melech Ninveh vayakam mikiso. He got up from his throne. Vayavor adrato. He threw away his royal garments. Right. Vayichas sak. He put on sak. Vayashav al efer. He put on sackcloth and sat on the ground. And they delved into the Rabboni Shalom. It's Paro. So when is it going to happen to you? Emor me'ata, the second column. Shagam achshav b'Mitzrayim, hayaparo yachol also came. Point is, he's saying that Paro could really do this now. He could conceivably do this, right? Shema shehichbid HaKadosh Baruch Hu et libo hayarak kol zman shehayara, that he hardened his heart as long as rotze la'amod b'gdulato, as long as that was what he wanted to do. If this is what he wants, if he's not going to change his mind, he's not going to change his personality, right? But he could do it, right? But he's not capable. Why? We'll see why. But if he really would have done it, made himself humble to the Rabboni Shalom, right? So he would have gotten up from his throne. V'yoshev ba'afar adayin hu yachol la'atzil atzmo. He could have saved himself. Kemosha asab mana you told Melech Ninveh, as he did when he was king of Ninveh, right? By the way, that's a fascinating medrash, right? To remember, right? Okay. Of al-zeh hisru so Moshe v'Aaron. This was the warning that Moshe and Aaron gave him. B'shem HaKadosh Baruch Hu ad matai me'anta la'anot mipanai. How long is it going to take you to lose your arrogance and to finally become humble to God? Ki vadai yavo yom. Clearly, the day is going to come. Tashpil she'az tashpil et atzmecha mipnei. You're gonna lower yourself. You're going to humble yourself. Mipnei v'tered mikisacha. You're going to come down your throne. V'tiflash ba'afar va'ad matai techakeh v'zu hayta hasra. This is the warning to him. How long is it going to take you? Right? He just adds a little bit of musar for all of us based on this. He says Yishma chacham v'yosif lekach. If we're smart, we're going to take out a personal, ethical, moral musar idea from this. Lekachet musar b'seichel kasher hatshuva amitit, real tshuva, real turnabout, real change in our lives. Shall kol echad for all of us. Tluy b'midat hashiflut atzma, is to get rid of arrogance. To have a sense of humility. Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. K'moshe matzinu tfilat rava basar tzlusai. The Gemara in Brachos gives a whole litany of tefillas that the Chachamim and the Gemara, the Tanoim made at the end of Shemona Esrei, and a lot of it is in our Elokai Nitzor at the end of the Shemona Esrei, right? And what Rabbi said, Afar ani b'chayai, I am dust in my life, kal v'chomer b'mitati, how much more so, efortiori, when I die. Hari ani lefanecha kechli malei busha uchlima, I am just a very, who am I? What am I? Please don't allow me to sin anymore. But he's throwing in a little bit of mussar for us, which is not it's a kedai to have that as well. But I just want to talk about this idea of God hardening Paro's heart, right? And you can really say, Zelo fair, right? To quote, not Loshen Kodesh, Zelo fair. What do you want from Paro? He can't help himself. You hardened his heart. So how do we understand that? What does it mean that he hardened his heart? So the Meshech Chochmah, the Or Sameach, in his introduction to Sefer Shemot, discusses the idea of Bechira, right? The essence of the human condition is Bechira, free choice. That's the essence of who we are. We have Bechira, we have free choice. And we make decisions. And we make the right decisions, we go in the right way. We make the wrong decisions, we don't go in the right way. But there's something that Meshech Chochmah says that is called beyond Bechira. It is possible to go beyond Bechira. How so? Let me demonstrate, right? We all go beyond Bechira, right? When Friday afternoon comes and you got a house full of guests coming, you might like to say to yourself, I don't need this Shabbos. No Shabbos this week. I'm canceling Shabbos. I'm going to the movies, right? That's it. But, you're beyond Bechira, right? You wouldn't think of doing such a thing, right? Take a Baal Tshuva. He's becoming frum, and he's getting closer and closer. I remember I had somebody, he's a tzaddik with a beautiful family today, but when he started to become frum, he was a heavy smoker. And he came to me once. He came to me at Mincha Shabbos afternoon. He says, Rabbi, I made it till 1 o'clock today for no cigarette, right? So, the Baal Tshuva is driving in the street and he stops at a red light and he stopped eating treif and he sees the McDonald's and he starts to break into a cold sweat, right? He's going to go, should I go? Should I not go, right? And he goes through he even goes through a red light to get out of there, right? 5 years down the line, when he stops that red light, he doesn't even recognize McDonald's, right? Would he think of, right? Because he's beyond that now. That's being beyond. We are beyond Bechira in so many things that we do. We are beyond Bechira. It's like a football game. You advance the ball in the line of scrimmage, or as Rav Dessler says it, he says it's like in the army, that the soldier, you keep going against you have victory, you whatever ground you have covered and conquered, you keep going. You don't have to look back, right? That's being beyond Bechira. It's possible to be beyond Bechira. Now, the problem is like this. You can be beyond Bechira in a good way, because how do you get beyond Bechira? Because there are three elements here. There's the mind, we talked about at the beginning. There's the mind, there's the heart, and then there's the liver, the seat of raw, of passion, right? So you have, if you are in charge, you are a melech. That's moach, lamed is lave, and chaf is the liver, right? So you're melech. Again, same idea. You're in charge. But if you do the right thing, right? But if you can be beyond Bechira, you keep doing the right thing, you'll keep doing the right thing. You won't stop at McDonald's, right? But if you keep doing the wrong thing, right, that's destruction. That's the liver, kaf, the lamed, the heart. That tells you, my heart's going to be instructed by my passion. Kalei, that's kaf, lamed, and then mem. Then the last is the mem, the moach. It's inverted. So what runs it is my passion, my taiva. That's kalem. That's destruction. Kalem is destruction in Loshen Kodesh, right? So Paro, that's what happened here. Paro kept making he couldn't help himself anymore, because that's what happened to him. He was beyond Bechira in the negative sense, in the negative way. Kabed Lev Paro. And that's why it says Kabed Lev Paro, right? Kabed is the liver, Lev is the heart, and the Paro is the aref. Take the word from Paro. Aref is the back of the neck, the nape of the neck. It's the backwards way of getting to the mind, right? Kabed Lev Paro is the same thing, right? That's what it was. Okay? Thank you all. Okay. Pleasure.